It begins that he flies, he's an eagle and is flying. An eagle in general is, in heraldics, the eagle is always the animal of kings and leaders, and because one thought that like the lion is the king of the wild animals, the eagle is the king of the birds. So he has something to do with the power drive, but also with spiritual elation, with high flights in thought and fantasy. It looks as if the dreamer has much more fantasy, capacities of fantasy, than his extrovert friend. Our dreamer as an eagle succeeds in shitting on his friend's head, and by that humiliating him. He has to go and get mama's help, and he has naturally an elated feeling of triumph. One could look at the dream a bit suspiciously and say there is also a little warning in it that she shouldn't elevate himself too much above the friend, but I think it rather means a compensation, that he feels a bit uncertain or inferior towards his friend, and therefore the dream shows him the possibility, look here, you are the real eagle, you can shit on his head, it's no problem. And she's flying in midair, and she can even veil herself in a grey mist which she produces. And here I would rather take the slightly negative connotation of the flying, namely this weightless sipping tea on a cloud. All the connotation shows a very light and unrealistic attitude, delightful but unrealistic attitude. There is no earth anywhere. Having a cup of tea is even an expression in English for saying light chatting, light social contact with people, nothing substantial. Tea doesn't nourish, it's a stimulating drink. That prison I would take as the timetable in which she is imprisoned. It is a very difficult profession because, let's say the stewardess, the dreamer, meets a man she likes. Well, she can stay with him 2 hours at airport so-and-so, but she has to take the next airplane back evening so-and-so. She is constantly in prison, and except for short holidays, she cannot break free from that. And also suffering from the jet lag, there is generally a big physical discomfort in this profession, an irregularity of sleep and physical discomfort, which makes these people even more uprooted and not connected with their body and with their own depth. Even the dreaming business is difficult for a stewardess. She sleeps once a daytime, once early in the evening, once late in the night. And when has she time to record and think over her dreams? So it is a very difficult profession, and that's why also in aging it's good for young people who like the spirit of adventure which is connected with it. But generally in aging there's a strong wish comes up to retire from it. And therefore, and to break free from that prison and have a life where you can more give it a creative form, your own life, so to speak, your own private life, and form your own life. He's in the depth of the earth, and the earth is an image for matter, for our body, for our physical existence. The cave is, so to speak, has always been a sacred place in former ages, and long after we didn't live anymore in caves, the sanctuaries were still in caves. They were, so to speak, in the womb of the goddess Earth, or the goddess of nature. So the cave is the depth of the inner nature. And the dream says Christ is not some model figure, as you have been taught, a spiritual something you have to follow. It is something which you find when you go into the depth of your own being. Then in the womb of Mother Earth you find him. And now he looks up to the sky. The sky has always been one of the most fascinating sights for mankind. And if we go into the history of mankind, the stars have always been divine figures, gods. Even the Bushmen in the Kalahari Desert see in every star constellation the great hunter or the great god in each constellation. And the stars is the realm where according to myth, our soul comes from and where it returns after death. In the stars, and if you think of the history of astrology, and astrology has been spread not only in the West, but also in India, China, and everywhere. In all high civilizations, we have astrological traditions. There, the stars always served to prognosticate the future, to find out the future not only of a person, but of mankind. In China, a whole group of astrologers had to watch the sky day and night and report to the emperor all signs in the sky which were interpreted as relating to the fate of the Chinese empire. And in a similar way, in antiquity, everything was seen in the sky. To look at the sky could therefore be seen, he's looking at the deeper constellations. Constellations comes from the word stella, star, togetherness of stars, the deeper constellations of collective and of his own personal life. He needs an orientation. Where am I in this time? What is my task? And so he looks up to the sky and sees especially this combination of Jupiter and Saturn. Now Saturn, as is well known, is an evildoer. Scorpions, serpents, the donkey and so on belong to his realm. He is a dark, destructive spirit. And Jupiter is in general the star of the kings, of the king of justice, of worldly expansion, of a royal personality, of magnanimity and all the positive qualities of a royal personality. So what the dream tells the dreamer is that when he looks for the constellation of time and naturally also of his own life, there is a combination of extreme opposites. It's a moment of change, of where destructive and constructive forces are constellated simultaneously. The lodestar means the guiding star, like the Star of Bethlehem. The guiding star as being the principle of individuation, one's innermost divine destiny or cosmic destiny, the meaning of one's life, what guides one towards the absolute individual meaning of one's own individual life. And the dreamer has a difficulty first to find that lodestar, the star which indicates a divine birth. In antiquity, one always thought that if a new bright star appeared in the sky, a future ruler or wise man or great man who would save mankind has appeared on earth. When a remarkable, outstanding personality is born, a new star appears in the bright star appears in the sky, and that's how the Magi, the three kings, interpreted it at once. When they saw the Star of Bethlehem, they knew now some outstanding, important personality is born on earth, and that's why they went to see the child. That fitted the general viewpoint of the time. Everybody would have concluded that at that time. A new star, that means somewhere somebody, an emperor or a great ruler or a personality who changes the whole fate of mankind has come to earth. The guide towards inner truth, for instance, very often in dreams of women, male angels, or if you think of the French saint Jeanne d'Arc, she was always guided by the Archangel Michael and advised by the Archangel Michael in her political and heroic career. So that would be the positive animus, whom I would call an innermost instinctual awareness of the inner truth, a basic inner truthfulness, which becomes a guiding spirit for a woman towards her individuation, towards becoming her own self. This man has pointing a rifle at her. A rifle in general is a phallic masculine symbol and again points to pointedness, goal orientation, to accurate, to be able to want something and to accurately have it in mind and go for it. That is, in a woman generally, a more unconscious quality and therefore appears either projected onto men or as an inner masculine figure. And this man points the rifle negatively at her. He threatens her and she becomes frightened. And then she suddenly realizes that he is responsible for her scary situation, not she. The beginning of the dream tells us that she's trying to approach and to look after her own femininity. And at that moment, the father walks up. And it's not her real father, but it is in the dream called her father, and it's a chief of police. And that shows that the image of the real father has become within her a chief of police. That would be that she now this woman tyrannizes herself with rules of behavior. In actual life, she has decided to become a good mother, and she forces herself in a tyrannical, harsh, authoritarian way to be a good mother. Her home, her children, and she and the family life has to be the way she thinks is right. But that's why the dream says it's a chief of police. The police is mainly engaged to look in a very collective, undifferentiated way that things go on orderly, conventionally orderly. And so the chief of police is that animus in woman who wants authority, order, behaving like everybody else, not doing anything shocking to everybody. A bit the opposite of the cat. The chief of police and the cat never get on very well, and that poor woman has both in her at the same time. And then the chief of police declares the woman to be crazy. So that would be a secret voice in her that whenever she follows her own feeling, something says, no, that's crazy, don't do that. You are crazy if you do that. Many people repress things within themselves by calling them crazy.
Death is practically in a lot of dreams ignored. I saw only brutal death dreams in cases where the people hadn't yet accepted death and against all hope still hoped, and by that wasted time. Then they had brutal dreams like their watch standing still, their life tree being cut down. Just dreams we say, no, you must face the fact now, that's going to be the end. As soon as people accepted the fact and faced it, then there was no more such dreams, but then on the contrary, one of the most frequent dreams I have seen in dying people, with all the different individual other variations, is that they should trust the animal. That a dog, their horse, their dog, or some animal would lead them through the dark door, which shows that nature has built in us an instinct. I think the instinct to live and the instinct to die is the same instinct. That same nature which carries us in the right way through life is that same nature which carries us on through the gates of death, and we have to trust it. So it's only if we are clinging to our conscious views and not trusting the depth of our psyche that we are afraid of death. Naturally, the ego likes to live and makes a lot of antics and doesn't go. That also belongs.
Well, that was a very simple woman, and she told the nurse in the morning after breakfast, tonight I had a strange dream. I dreamt that there was a candle on the windowsill, and it was slowly burning down, and it began to flicker. And I had a panic, and I thought, my God, now the great darkness is coming, the great darkness is coming. And then suddenly there was a change, and the candle was outside the windowsill, on the outer part of the window, and was big and burning quietly again. Isn't that a strange dream? 4 hours after that dream, she died. The dream seems to tell her, yes, the candle of your light is flickering, it's going out, but it will continue in another medium. Beyond a certain threshold, the window would be an isolating threshold. It is going on in another sphere. That very same life is going on. She was very comforted by the dream without understanding it. I remember another dream which has been published by a medical doctor of a man who dreamt that he saw an abyss, and at the border of the abyss was growing a big tree, and the tree was slowly losing its roots and having its roots in mid-air. And suddenly there was an earthquake and the tree was falling down. And he thought, that's the end. And at that moment, the tree began to hover in mid-air and to continue to exist in mid-air without having roots in the earth, just growing on. As if the unconscious would say, your tree of life is losing only its contact with earthly reality, but it's not dying. It's growing on. The life process is going on in another medium. And that's the gist of most dreams of dying people.
The last dream, exactly 24 hours before she died, was that she was standing beside her bed in her nightgown, feeling wonderful. She naturally felt absolutely rotten in this last phase of her dying process. And the doctors came in and said, yes, against all expectations, you are cured. You can now put your clothes on and leave the hospital. And she happily reached out for her clothes and said, I'm cured. And then she looked back and saw in the bed herself lying as a corpse. You see, I think one couldn't say clearer. In one way, you will die. But in another way, that will be your psyche. You go on living, and you will even feel better and good again and be cured and be able to go on. But your body is gone.
She knew she was going to die. She apparently talked to her husband, and they decided that I should finish her book. And one day when I went to the tower, he said to me, go over to speak to my wife. And I looked at him amazed, and he said, her attitude to you has changed. And then I had a very good talk with her. He had the wish that I should do it. And so that then suddenly, in this last moment before her death, made a very positive bridge. There I had an interesting dream. I was very uncertain. I naturally agreed to do it. I mean, who wouldn't in such a situation? But subjectively, I felt I can't do ordered creative work. You know, it's not my work. How can I carry out a child which somebody else has conceived? That's a transplantation. How can I do it? And I was very doubtful about it. And then I dreamt in the night. Yes, I must first tell, in reality, my dog, after she had been in heat, sometimes had imagined she was going to have puppies. And then she made holes in the ground and lay in them happily, you know, with his mother feeling something for puppies. And she did that once in Jung's tower under a bench and had made a hole there, and we laughed about it. And in the dream, Mrs. Jung had a big bowl of soup, and she said, I'm going to put that into that, and she put it in that hole which my dog made. Now, you see, the soup bowl is one of the symbols of the Grail. That was the Grail. He is in one version, the Grail is a soup bowl. And so it means I hand now this soup bowl, my child, to your mother instinct. As an adopted child, to your dog, which is your mother instinct. So that is an act of adoption on the feminine side. I've adopted her child, so to speak, or she has entrusted me with her child. And when I woke up after the dream, I thought, now I'll probably be able to do it. My unconscious has accepted the task. Well, I think about now 30 years approximately. I have figured out that I have interpreted approximately something like 65,000 dreams. That's a minimum. That is the most mysterious thing of all. Who makes the dreams? There is still a naive prejudice among many people that dreams express our own wishes or our own schemes or plots. But the longer one looks at them, the more one sees that cannot be true. Too many dreams represent what we hate hearing. The basis from which dreams originate seem to be rather, let's call it with a vague expression, nature. Nature itself. It's a natural phenomenon. We take dream like being like a tree or a wild pig or something. We cannot say what makes a wild pig. Well, if we believe in God, then we'll say God makes the wild pigs. But about that, it is that unknown power or mysterious force which makes all existence. The best perhaps is to call it with a vague expression, the Godhead or nature, which in such a vague sense that we don't pin it down to anything special, because we just don't know. The only thing by observing dreams for a long time is that we see it has a superior intelligence in it. Perhaps you have seen that in some of the dreams, the wisdom and the intelligence and the guiding cleverness in which dreams lead us. They show us where we are wrong, they show us where we are unadapted, they warn us from danger. They predict some future events in our life. They hint at the deeper meaning of our life. They convey to us illuminating insights. The dreams cannot prevent us from the vicissitudes and illness and sad events of human existence, but they seem to be able to give us a guiding line how to cope with them, and how to find a meaning in our life, and how to fulfill our own destiny, how to follow our own star, to realize our greater potential of life within us.